Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Places We'll Go show. Fabulous to have you with us. And as ever, we've got a tremendous guest lined up. Very welcome, SJ. Good morning.
Morning. Hello, both.
Fabulous to have you on the show. So many people will be very familiar with SJ, but I'm going to do my best to do an intro of SJ's wonderful career. Actually, I know you pretty well, SJ, I would say. So, we're on the board of the Front Foot for the Advertising Association together. We're fellow Nottingham University graduates.
We are.
And of course, Saatchi's, who you work for, do all the creative work for Direct Line and most recently One Churchill as well. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And also, I remember very well, you came in to talk to the extended marketing leadership at Direct Line. It must have been about 5 or 6 years ago, and what a true inspiration you were there. Shouldn't have been surprised, I knew you would be. And that's because you've had a glittering career, as I know, across Grey, TBWA, Y&R, I think 8 years at Grey, and then last couple or so at Saatchi Saatchi. And what I know you for is for your unadulterated positivity, but also a great heart. And then you've been a very active campaigner in the diversity space, driving force behind the Advertising Diversity Task Force. And I think you're just a wonderfully inspiring person. Fantastic to have you on the show. And I'm interested to find out more. I feel like I know you, but I think there's more to come. I was very interested. I read an article a little while back where you asked the question, what advice would you give your younger self? And you said you'd be a little kinder to yourself. So maybe we'll find out what the trials and tribulations have been in terms of being SJ in your career. So fantastic to have you on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Tell you what, I'm really jealous, guys. I feel like, I'm the odd one out in this one.
No, Richie, you're in the crew. For sure.
That's awesome. Thanks, SJ. Well, hey, look, let's kick off, right? What are your hopes for 2022?
Oh, gosh, I just hope that all the hard work and the crazy and the wildness of 2020 and 21 just finds a way of making 22 tremendous for everyone. We've all worked super hard. We deserve a good year and a big year and an enjoyable year.
Yeah, this is a really interesting point about some of the enjoyment has come out, but you're still having some wins as an agency. So you must have been having some highs. What's been the exciting things as 2022 emerges? What's coming back on stream for you?
I think even during the lockdowns and the crazy of 2020 and 2021, I think the awesomeness of our people has just been incredible. Their resilience, their creativity. The fact we were producing ads in deep lockdown, like complex production shoots remotely within perhaps 10 days of lockdown. I think the thing that's kept me just so buoyant and excited is that I think certainly our people have been brilliant. Our industry's been brilliant. I think marketeers have been so smart. And I've been really excited actually because I definitely have seen marketing even in some ways find an even more important role at the top table in organizations, because I think brands have helped businesses navigate the last 2 years. So all that momentum and all that, I think that authority, just seeing that play out now when we are out of lockdown and we're able to really lean into what our brands can do and what our businesses can achieve.
Sounds great, SJ. It's you lead probably the most iconic advertising agency in the world. I'm sure it's such a privilege, and I'm phenomenally jealous of it. But I'd love to ask, what do you think makes Saatchi Saatchi a magical place?
Gosh, it is hardwired, literally hardwired with an audacity and an ambition and a swagger. I've never known an organization like it. And that just brings so much sort of hardwired energy and belief and commitment. So if we set out to do something, we'll do it. So that's probably the thing that I found most extraordinary about Saatchi Saatchi. And I guess that comes from 50 years of breaking the rules and doing things differently, and being at the front and being famous does mean you have to step up. So I think it's definitely a magical place to be and to work. And it's probably found another level in the last few years because it's really found its groove creatively. And great work fixes most things in most businesses. So the fact that the work has been getting better and better, I think it's making it an extra special place to be.
Isn't it? Nothing is impossible.
Nothing is impossible. Very loud and proud on the top of the building. And that's really important because that can be a carrot or a stick, can't it? Nothing is impossible. It's a great rallying cry, let's go, nothing's impossible, guys. And it has to be that side of nothing's impossible that we lean into, not, well, nothing's impossible, you need to get it done, because that's just that's bad voodoo, and that's not how we should be operating as a business. So yeah, it's the carrot of nothing is impossible that excites me.
Just as a step out, I love the language you use, SJ. So you talked about the awesomeness and bad voodoo. I'm sure that will keep coming through. And the work. Obviously, we were delighted to get the Marketing Week Masters Grand Prix Award for the Direct Line campaign last year. So that was awesomeness in itself.
What a show!
No, we're allowed to show off, Mark. I think
shared celebration, Richie.
Yeah.
You know,
Alrighty.
So, rule breaker. Are you a rule breaker?
Do you know what? I'm not a rule breaker. I'm really like, if you tell me to do something, I'll do it. I'm unbelievably unrule breaky as a person, which is why I think I'm very good in this business, because I'm pretty straight and we're going to do this and let's do it the right way. So I am surrounded by amazing rule breakers. Perhaps I'm doing myself a disservice. Perhaps I do break the rules. I think I'm breaking the rules in the industry, probably around D&I and a refusal to accept the norm. So yeah, I'll take it back. I break the rules sometimes. I break the rules when that's inextricably linked to my values, perhaps.
And perhaps if there was any rules to break, perhaps those are the ones that are, foremost in front of mind. And I think that's just some of the best rules to be shattering at this point in time. I actually want to ask, Saatchi Saatchi's heritage clearly came from founders who themselves are migrants. What role does that play in the organization? Does it still stick within the DNA?
Yeah, it's crazily important. We spend so much time talking to brands and businesses like what's true to you, what's really in your brand DNA. And we turned 50 in 2020. So a lot of navel gazing, as you can imagine, a lot of reflection. But we're also really keen that we were making it about how we face into the next 50 years, not just celebrated the 50 years of great work in the past. So in digging deep, we realized we needed to really understand our foundations. And I'm probably for the first time in a long time, we properly dug down on the history of the agency to understand who we were. Where does this awesomeness and audaciousness come from? This chutzpah. And we spent time basically understanding Charles and Maurice Saatchi more, the founding brothers. And yeah, it was just extraordinary to realize that amongst the sort of grandiose of 80s advertising and the braces and Charlotte Street and all the iconic of the agency, that we were born from Jewish Iraqi refugees who fled Iraq in the late 40s to escape persecution. And I think anyone who's been other, particularly anyone who's been other and been vilified or genuinely been fearful of their own progress, it just imbues you with an ambition and a drive to find a better way for yourself and for your family. So yeah, it's I feel very lucky that we have that story sort of in the walls of the building, and it definitely gave us like the integrity and the authority to step up when we decided to really find a way to put some petrol in the tank in 2020 and really lean into D&I. I mean, what better legacy than getting our D&I act together?
There's quite a hairs on the back of the neck moment around the story of how it happened back in the day, and obviously 50 years, sort of it's a bit unfortunate that it happened during pandemic, but maybe it was actually the perfect time to sort of step on despite the context. But I want to go back in time a little bit and just understand your journey, SJ, specifically marketing and advertising, not necessarily the easiest industries to get into. I mean, that's what the school of marketing is all about. What was your path into the industry?
Okay, well, I am delighted to now age myself, because the way I got into the industry is I wrote 100 letters. So it was the email and the internet was pretty embryonic when I graduated, and the best way to reach lots of agencies at once was a letter. So I moved to London without a job, and really lucky because I had support from my mum and dad, and I had like 2 jobs to pay my rent and all this stuff. But I wrote 100 letters to 100 relatively small agencies, knowing that the milk round would take a year, and I wanted to start working straight away from university. So I wrote 100 letters, and I went to the library, got out a big book called Elf, which still exists online, found 100 addresses, wrote to 100 agencies, and I think within a week I got a phone call saying an agency was hiring and would I like to come in for an interview. And so I worked at a relatively small startup with about 25 people and learnt the ropes and had a whale of a time. Like the best time. I was definitely breaking rules then. There was much mischief. When my first 2 years of advertising, but I loved it, learnt loads, and yeah, I felt like I had a very lucky break very quickly, all things considered.
Go on then. I'm going to do a litmus test here then, SJ. How many people have written to you in the last year asking for an opportunity?
Oh gosh, that's an amazing question. So few. Isn't that insane? And the email is out there and it's so much easier now. And it's interesting actually, because when people do write, they tend to write relatively sort of boilerplate. And it's like, gosh, it takes a couple of minutes to look at the work, or a couple of minutes to perhaps look at my way in, or what I'm passionate about. So, or what the agency is passionate about. So yeah, if anyone's listening, you've got to create the conditions, you've got to create the opportunities. So find ways to be noticed and find ways to ask, and use LinkedIn brilliantly, use industry events brilliantly, and just don't be afraid to ask. I think
it's funny. I have a similar anecdote. So I spent a lot of time in the classroom. I gave up the professional marketing career and kind of went into marketing education a while ago. And at the start of most semesters, I'll sort of say, guys, look, there's a great opportunity ahead of you across the next 10 weeks. But what I want to do is I want to set a challenge up. And I really want you to think about someone who inspires you the most, someone who you think could give you sort of the next leg up or a rung of your career, whether it's a learning, whether it's an opportunity, whatever that is. And I want you to reach out to them over the course of the next 10 weeks. And we will compare notes on week 9 to then determine who's done the best and who's been able to forge the best relationships and connections. And genuinely, in all my 8 years of doing that, I would honestly say that at the end of it, of a class of 50 to 100, you probably have 1 or 2 at the end who ever come back and remember that moment. And I just find that's the biggest shame and waste of that opportunity that you can get.
You're so right. I hadn't really thought about, in all the conversations I have with people, the importance of reminding them, like, the power of networking. And just doesn't matter if they don't write back. At least you've tried. You're not there are no downsides to reaching out. So what about you two? How did you both break in? So Richie, what was your journey?
Oh wow, well, it was a bit of a topsy-turvy one, really. I think there was an inspiration moment, and then there was trying to get in, which took a bit longer. But inspiration was I actually did a project at Cambridge where I went into rural India and was trying to help Tata AIG sell life insurance. And we created a mobile phone strategy to help these people in villages trying to overcome their skepticism. So that's what really sort of hooked me in. And then a little bit sort of cross wires into Mark's world, really, where got back after that back into HSBC, where I had a grad job, and hated my first appointment. It was in commercial banking, and I was about to quit the bank, and then landed up in Mark's team, and the rest is history. So that's my little anecdote in. What about you, Mark?
Happy accident, which is why I think I'd love more people to make a deliberate choice to get into marketing rather than it being happy accident. Now, I was destined for a career in finance, did the sports president role at Nottingham University, deferred that job for a year. That job disappeared in a puff of smoke. I was saved from a bad career in finance, went back through the milk round, joined Mars, again, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then I started working in marketing at 27 and loved it from the moment I did my first placement there. But it was, I didn't even really know what marketing was back in the day. Didn't know anybody who worked in it, didn't know what a wonderful career it could be. Hence really, happy to support Richie in the work the School of Marketing is doing in terms of helping more people to make a more deliberate decision. But anyway, I see what you did there, but back to you, right? This is about you. So the big breaks.
Just trying to make her life easier, you see.
I know. But what have been the big breaks, and how have you manufactured those, if that's been the case?
Yeah, I don't know. I should be quite articulate on this because I've done a couple of talks on what sort of powered me forward. Definitely working hard, and that's not something that I'm like really proud of, and it's great. Everyone needs to work crazy hours, but in truth, I've worked hard to make sure that I am delivering, and that's partly as a Black woman. I always do feel like I've always been representing in a room, so I think I've doubled down. I think Karen Blackett is very articulate. She talks about if you're Black, you're gonna have to work twice as hard. If you're a woman, you have to work twice as hard. And so if you're a Black woman, you're probably going to have to work 3 times as hard. And it's true, whether that's self-imposed or how the industry has worked. But yeah, I've worked hard. I've had high standards, for sure, definitely really high standards. And why you can't not, because so much work goes into creating ads. You want to make sure your cog, what you're doing is exemplary and really helping power things forward. kindness is 1000% a superpower. Being kind just comes back 1,000-fold. It makes the day go faster. It makes the projects go better. It means that you attract the right people to your team. You keep great people. So kindness, steps of working hard, high values, kindness, and definitely finding my tribe, having a crew within an organization and amongst my peers in the industry where I could go, gosh, I'm having the worst day ever. Should we go and grab a coffee? Or that thing that's happened feels really odd. Is it me, or is that an odd meeting? Just having a sounding board and a support crew and cheerleaders, both within any organization I've worked at, but also, again, because I'm old, over time you sort of build like a crew of amazing people that you can phone up at any time and say, this just happened, or I need a favor, or it's those 4 things have probably helped power me up to where I am today.
Wow, what some amazing insights there, SJ. And it actually saddened me when you talked about the need to work 3 times as hard on the basis of who we are and what we are. And I feel like, do we feel like making any progress in that respect, or do we feel like sort of a few steps back? I don't know. What's your vibe on it?
I think it's definitely getting easier because we are surrounded by more progressive people. Bad behaviors are being squashed, and all those great things. In truth, there's a lot of societal bad behaviors and pressures that do mean you're more. I think more diverse talent tends to have more fragile confidence. Imposter syndrome, comparison trap. These are all very real ways that people are impacted and affected. And it's not exclusive in any way to people from diverse backgrounds, but I do think there is a higher propensity. And confidence is, I talk about kindness as a superpower. Confidence is also a superpower. And when that confidence can be eroded or not, it means that you lean back and then perhaps don't say anything in a meeting or worry about X, Y, Z in a different way. I think they all impact how quickly you can progress to an organization, which is why mentoring is so important. Or your tribe is so important, because you need those people that can prop you up and remind you how good you are.
Yeah. I've got a ton of questions, but about what you said, but just want to do a little bit on the mentoring, because it's so integral to SOM. What role has mentoring played? And also, you use the word tribe. Do you just want to sort of expand a little bit what you mean by tribe? But hopefully it sort of leads to the same place. I'm interested in your view on mentoring.
Yeah, so in terms of tribe, and it's certainly, definitely there's been some amazing times and some crazy times. And I realized probably 5 or 6 years ago, when the agency I was at was particularly volatile and there was a lot of politics, and I hate politics. And there was just a group of us that all been sent away on a coaching course, which we were all hating the idea of. We're really busy, 2 days out of the office. What's coaching? I don't want it. And we just bonded so brilliantly as a crew. It just naturally just stayed with us when we got back in the agency. There was a tribe of about 6 or 7 fairly senior women within the agency that just could go, dude, you're amazing. Like, what you just achieved is phenomenal. Or the crazy and the politics, don't let it get to you, because don't forget X, Y, Z. So I think there was a genuine, it happened to be all women, but no way does it need to be any single sex group. But we just had each other's back, and we were each other's support crew, and we still are. And one of the girls got a promotion the other day. I was so pleased for her, so deserved. So I think having that tribe is so important for support and confidence and propping up and reminders, and just personal cheerleaders. That's what that tribe is. And you have a laugh and all that good stuff as well.
SJ, I've got to say that I'm sort of sitting here reflecting on so many of the things you're saying. And I've actually got to pinch myself that I'm actually talking to the MD of Saatchi and Saatchi. I'm like, I feel it like it's a real privileged position sometimes that both me and Mark get to be in to talk to some amazing guests. I just really want to ask, I mean, what is it like being the MD of Saatchi and Saatchi? Like, how does it feel like? What's the deal?
The absolute irony that we've just been talking about imposter syndrome, when you're talking there, I'm like, I'm honestly not as good as you think I am, because that's sort of that's what the pocket I always tend to sit back in. So yeah, I'm constantly having to course correct. And I also pinch myself that I'm finally working at an agency my parents have heard of after 20 years of doing this. But the agency itself has disproportionate influence. if we do something as an agency, we have a chance to properly jump, whether it's within the industry or beyond. Saatchi have done X, and it's like, Saatchi have done this. So that's something that I am so excited about. Our ability to influence not just the industry, but Britain and beyond, I think, is one of the most unbelievable parts of our toolkit. So that's probably the real answer to why I'm excited for 22, our ability to influence.
Yeah,
awesome.
amazing.
SJ, you've mentioned your parents twice. So I just want to rewind a little bit and see if you can put your finger on where the kindness, the work ethic, the high standards, the dealing with imposter syndrome, all the things that have helped you to be successful. Can you put your finger on what's the early origins of your path?
Gosh, origins are so interesting, aren't they? And there is a reason why superhero origin films are so big, I guess. There is just something true in the nucleus of us as humans, how we're formed, how we're shaped, how much by the time we're like 7 or 8, that's the future human. And so yeah, I come from a big family. I'm one of 5 kids. My mum and dad are amazing. Neither of them went to university. My mum was a housewife, so it just their ambition for me, but also there was no pressure. They were like, you be whatever you want to be. My brother is an IT consultant. My sister's a teacher. My other brother's a fireman. My little brother drives a coach. Like, as a crew, we are so different, but at the same time, 2 of us are adopted, but at the same time, the shared values is, I think, an amazingly powerful thing. Values are just critical to who we are. So salute my mum and dad all the time. I don't think they believe me when I say it, but yeah, they've absolutely been unbelievable sort of ethical North Stars for me. Brilliantly kind people.
Lovely.
Changing direction slightly. Saatchi and Saatchi is known for its creativity, and that's one of the things that you guys excel in. So I'd love to know. Do you think you're a creative person, and perhaps what's your definition of creativity?
Gosh, yeah, definitely a creative person, and that ability to use my imagination and take lateral jumps and be able to navigate through to accelerate through to a solution, and to appreciate like just tangible creativity and enjoy the colors and the craft and the kerning and the detail of what we do. So definitely a creative person. I am surrounded by people who have perhaps got a billion times more creativity than me in some ways, but I do know I play an important part in us getting a creative product out. And amongst the highs and lows, I think the fact that we get to work with amazing products and we have endpoints, like tangible things that come out the other end of a process, it's amazing. I will never not get excited from seeing a treatment or a storyboard or a first edit or the first poster. I mean, yeah, all that stuff. So lucky.
A new Churchill work to come. But anyway,
Mark, my friend, the beauty of post-production. Let's go.
Yeah. So you're in the office. I think we were just talking before. You've got the choice of rooms. It's not so populated yet. So as we record this, we're really just re-emerging from Plan B and in the UK. So but agencies need that spark and that creativity and that flair. So how has that worked through virtual working when that even creative pairs working as pairs, sort of living in each other's pockets almost? How have you managed to navigate through that?
Yeah, well, as I said earlier, the agency crew have been ridiculous how they have worked it through and navigated it, and how they've worked in pairs, because they used to be able to riff off each other. They've so quickly worked out, actually, we're going to make it happen. We're going to do it by Zoom. So those pairs have still worked. I think ambition and a determination to get to the other side. So there's constant, like we've got an ad to make, we've got an activation to design, we've got just people's commitment to the cause and to the brief has created momentum, which is amazing. So people's own sort of self powering up. As an agency, we've tried hard to stay connected, whether it's way more regular agency meetings or how we've worked with department heads for them to spend more time as departments. And honestly, any time that agencies opened up, leadership are in, heads of department are in, and we are so encouraging of people coming into the agency. So we're actually going to be moving to a 2+2+1 cadence to give people structure, because we want to empower people. They've been amazing when they had to work from home. That works better for them. That's great, but we work better together. And critically, our young talent need to be surrounded by people. Like we learn so much by osmosis. So from Monday, it'll be 2+2+1. So at least 2 days a week in the agency, depending on your projects, depending on your team, whenever's best, come in. 2 days, but you're probably working from home, heads down, do what you need to do, and then spend a day doing something different. Like if you usually work at your kitchen table, go and work in a coffee shop and surround yourself by other types of people, other types of the UK. Go and work in clients' offices or go and work with your client. So that's the plan: 2+2+1. 2 days in the office, 2 days at home if you want, and at least 1 day out and about, still working, still learning, getting things done, but almost getting out of our agency bubble.
Nice. It feels it certainly feels like the two and the two sound a little bit, perhaps a formula that a lot of people are thinking of, but the one sounds awfully unique. And I'd love just to dig down into that a little bit. Just kind of why do you feel that's important to get out of the agency bubble, as you call it?
Yeah, well, what we do day in, day out is make work that has to work in the real world and has to work in modern Britain. We've got to spend more time in it. And our clients, the geography of their offices, the work that they do, the people that work in there, by definition, gives us a greater slice of modern Britain. Alternatively, if we can spend more time in central London or South London, wherever's best, working in a coffee shop, again, we're going to see and feel and hear more of Britain. And perhaps it's once a month you actually go and work in a coffee shop at the National Portrait Gallery and use some of that time to be inspired by awesome creativity of the past. So it's making sure we have the stimulus and the opportunity to stay curious, I think, that fifth day.
Yeah. You mind if I just jump in with one more question here? Because one of the big criticisms of our industry, in particular advertising, is that it tends to be very southern in its ilk, and clearly there's the nucleus being very London-centric, as it were. And all the examples and anecdotes you mentioned were still very London-centric, given clearly where we're all based. But how do you think that could then shift in the future, given the need to serve and service consumers all around Britain, as opposed to just trying to be too London-focused?
Yeah, well, we talk a lot about the talent crunch in our industry, and it's rubbish that there is a talent crunch, but it's brilliant because it means we're going to have to double down and find different corridors and pipelines for our talent. So I'm excited about the fact that we are finding new and brilliant ways to bring talent from outside London in, or to base ourselves outside of London. And I like all the salutes in the world and high fives to Ali Owens of the Brixton Finishing School and all the work she's done around Ad Academy, all the work you guys are doing, the School of Marketing. It's brilliant. These are digital platforms that genuinely can go anywhere. So I think we're doing a better job of reaching out to non-London talent. What we need to do in parallel is to do a much better job of making it on a practical level possible for those amazing kids or whoever it is to get into London and experience us. And there are some great agencies doing great things. I'm super proud of the work we've done on Saatchi Home, for example, which is one of our 50th legacy initiatives, and that is working really hard with the London Hostel Association in partnership. And we've got access to beautiful, like really lovely student accommodation style properties in central London. And we have a preferential rate, which we then subsidise. And it allows us to genuinely make it possible for young people outside London to come in and live in London, experience working in an agency, and hopefully come and find permanent roles in our agency or in the industry. So again, it's like pointing creativity. And that was a really creative solution to the fact that London's bloody expensive. Pointing creativity at diversity, we're going to come up with so many great solutions and initiatives. It's just finding the bandwidth to lean in and apply that creativity, I think.
Saatchi Home is a wonderful initiative. It's so clearly putting your money where your mouth is. More generally, we've talked a little bit about diversity. You are an advocate and campaigner. 10 years fast forward, what would you hope for in terms of where we're up to in this D&I conversation. It still feels like there's a long way to go. Where could we get to?
We definitely have a long, I think we're on, honestly, perhaps chapter 1 of our book, on our progress, or chapter 2. The industry's got a long way to go. Honestly, in 10 years' time, I hope we're not having the conversation. Like, we've got to find a way to accelerate out of this and make sure we're spending our time and energy doing other brilliant things. Diversity of our own organizations, particularly for advertising. We're small businesses. We can create change super quickly. And so we need to be doubling down on our efforts. I expect our agency to look and sound like London. That's a really critical KPI for us. We have no problem in most departments attracting amazing women. We've got to make sure we still have these amazing women at senior leadership levels, getting the balance there. There's another big thing. And then there's an overall metric about belonging. Increasingly, we have got to make sure people feel like they can belong and bring their true selves to work. And I expect the agency world and marketing world, I do think you guys have got to catch up, the marketing world as well, to make sure that we find ways to look and sound more like the Britain in which we serve.
Oh God, can't agree more with you, SJ, to be honest.
I've just thrown in a little jibe about marketing and organisations there, haven't I?
Yeah, it didn't go unnoticed. Sorry,
You're bigger organisations, to be fair, but yeah, come on, marketing organisations.
This is it, guys. That's the rallying cry. Catch up, marketing organizations there. I think it leads very nicely on to sort of a little bit of your, just wanted to get a sense of your own personal ambition and perhaps what you want to leave as your mark and your legacy on the industry.
Oh, gosh. To have genuinely opened the biggest doors possible to amazing talent, all amazing talent, regardless of background. Like, it's a genuine meritocracy, our industry. If you're creative and smart and lean in, nothing should stop you being brilliant. You don't need to have a degree. It shouldn't matter what your background is. So as long as we can get people in through the door and create conditions for success, I just love the fact you could take a kid from anywhere in the UK and make sure that they're successful. We just got to make sure the doors are wide enough and the support network's there and they've got their tribes to keep powering them up.
Great thought. It won't have all been a bed of roses. So we always like to pick a little bit at some of the times that you've had setbacks or failures, just because everybody does. And it's good to normalize that and not get too hung up on the fact of it all and the learning opportunities. So what have been some of the things where it didn't all go perfectly for you, SJ?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I do feel like I've had a pretty lucky bounce along the way to get me where I am. But yeah, there's been some awful times. There was, I've only worked in about 3.5 agencies as well, but I had a torrid, horrific time at one agency, and I was bullied. And you know, my default was to work harder. So I just worked harder. I didn't talk to anyone about it. And I also didn't step out entirely and leave the job. I just got my head down, and that was months of awfulness, absolute awfulness. And I think when I talk about the importance of finding your tribe, and just remind you're never on your own. So I think that was, for me, such an important learning. And I think the world's changed and shifted anyway. I think networks are now better. I think things like Bloom UK, even if you're a junior within the industry world, is an amazing community of people. But that was a tough 6 months, I think, just dealing with, and it's made me so intolerant as a leader now. If I get a sniff of someone taking their influence or power and abusing it. So tough times. I learned loads from it. I learned a lot about myself, and I learned so much as a leader about what I would expect of anyone in my team. So yeah.
Thank you for talking to that. That will no doubt be helping some people who are unfortunately facing a similar situation.
You're not on your own. Talk to somebody, talk to NABS, talk to whoever it is. And we're in an industry where we have lots of other job opportunities. So if it's really bad, just get out. You don't need to stay there.
Amazing. By the way, I loved your turn of phrase. You've had a lucky bounce. I think that's just beautiful. That's really, really great. Talk about sort of lucky bounces, and that certainly alludes to bouncing around a little bit. How has bouncing around, and you've worked in a number, like you say, three and a bit agencies, how has that actually helped your career trajectory? And would you advise people kind of stepping outside of one organization sort of for life kind of job in order to get to where they want to go?
Yeah, I mean, staying curious is so important. It's so important. It's the thing that will fuel you as a great marketeer. Which doesn't mean you need to change organizations, and you can be a lifer and you'll still be brilliant, but make sure you're changing departments, changing roles, leaning into secondments, finding ways for change. And obviously organizations themselves can change. You can stay in one organization, you can have 5 different leaders in 10 years. So, but change is important. So whether you stay in an organization that's evolving and you're evolving yourself, or you're moving around, I think, again, the industry has changed so much in the last few years in terms of our relationship with freelancers, our understanding of how long people want to work somewhere, that no one looks at a CV now and goes, oh gosh, they've jumped around a bit, because to be honest, that probably means there's a curiosity and a hunger to learn more. I mean, I do think now when I look at CVs, when you look at someone who's only ever worked in an ad agency, and I count myself there, and before taking the Saatchi job, one of the things I was looking at is the tech platforms. I think just sort of think slightly more laterally about career progression, I think, is important, and mixing things up. And perhaps you do go client side for a couple of years, or go and work at a startup for a year. So just, finding different ways to be stimulated is important, I think, as part of any career.
So just to boomerang that one right back at you. You talk about curiosity and learning. What have you yet to learn?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we need another podcast. We need probably an hour and a half. I mean, the world is changing at pace. There is so much more. There's so much more for me to learn about where marketing is going, and how the brilliance that data and tech and the massive shifts in production are taking us. So that's crazily exciting. Running a business, and an evolving business like an ad agency, crazy how much I've got to learn there. How to manage a new generation coming through who are so different from the generation that preceded them, and making sure the new generation of talent can be as excited about the world of advertising and marketing as I've been. So yeah, there's a job to do for sure.
I tell you what, on that note, I think it's a great place to pause and to stop the conversation. I think we're just about out of time here, SJ, this morning. It's been absolutely inspirational, to be honest with you. It's been so enjoyable to hear all your anecdotes, your thoughts, even your turns of phrases are just incredible and just so creative in the way that you articulate them. So I think on this note, let me pass over to Mark for some of your key takeaways, Mark, and then we'll do a close. But I just want to say a massive thank you, SJ. It's just been a privilege to have spent some time with you, to listen to your journey and your advice, guidance, and things that you've learned along the way. So thank you.
Thanks, Richie. Pleasure.
Yeah, so we always try and put a bit of a bow on the end of this to what the key takeouts, and I try and think of 3 kind of core themes. And so here they are. The first one is passion for the work, the influence that you can have on brands and on society, the excitement you have, that just shines through. So love your passion, SJ. That's most obvious. The second one is a kindness and an empathy to you. The care you have, for sure, and most obviously in a diversity context, but more broadly, you mentioned bullying as one piece of this story, but just it shines through the fact that you care about people and want the best for them. You expect a lot, but I think you give a lot as well. And then the final thing is your language. I mean, it's right from the beginning. Awesomeness of people, chutzpah, bad voodoo, crew, tribe. It's such a lovely, uplifting language and lexicon, which I think links to your inherent positivity. So I just think that's been a real gift. All of those things have been a real gift. The whole thing has been lovely. It's been fantastic to have you on, hugely uplifting. Just as we sort of meander through these mid-January times. What a gift. Thank you so much. And I know everybody listening in will benefit hugely from it. So thank you for your time, SJ.
Oh gosh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a lovely, lovely morning.
Brilliant. Well, you take care and have a great 2022. There we go.